Ribbon candy is one of the most classic and well-loved machine quilting designs that there is. But even as beautiful as it is, it can sometimes get a little boring, am I right? So today I've got 10 versions of ribbon candy for you. Let's have a look. I'm Susan Smith. Welcome into my studio. I love to pull back the curtain on the things that I'm working on and show you some of the things that I learned, some tips and tricks, and in today's case, some variations on a classic quilting design that many of us use, but sometimes we just want to embellish it a little bit. So let's do that together. Our first variation of ribbon candy is kind of my happy place in terms of curvature. So this is what you will often see quilters doing in borders or in sashing. And it's kind of a figure-8 motion, just back and forth and back and forth. And I've got my lines spaced. I didn't exactly measure, but they're about 1 3/4 or 2 inches apart in my little border. So these first couple variations will just be subtle differences in shape that are useful when you're doing different sizes of borders or sashing. And then later variations, we're going to do some add-ins and some buffing it up a little bit. So there's number one. That's kind of my typical, most common, most simple ribbon candy. Next, we're going to do one that's a little perhaps easier to do if you're a beginner at ribbon candy. And also, it's very useful if you're working in a smaller or thinner border or sashing, like 1.5 or 1.25 inches. So essentially, I'm doing a curve at the top and then angling right down, a curve at the bottom, angling right up. So it's a little more bowling pin looking. And honestly, it looks a little bit long and stringy in a border that's this wide. But like I said, in a narrow border, this can be very helpful. And if you're having trouble with the back and forth mirrored curves in ribbon candy, practicing it this way sometimes feels easier. So curve and angle, curve and angle, curve and angle. It's a very simple movement. Variation number 3, again, I'm going to do the curvature all the way around, curve it, but this time I'm going to exaggerate it even more. I'm going to swing wider with those curves. This just gives a different profile when this shape catches the light in a border. So that much wider, almost bulbous at the top and bottom. So as you can see, these first 3 variations are simply a difference, a subtle difference in the shape that can really affect a different look. Ribbon candy number 4. So again, this is the quite bulbous one, but we're actually going to allow our ribbons to curl over each other, both top and bottom. Again, a small change and no difference really in your thread path or your movements, but just a very different look. It's kind of a chicken wire look, if you will, but another border treatment at your fingertips. And you can certainly vary this up a little bit. You can do it with the slimmer ones, or you can do it with the really wide ones. That's entirely up to you. Ribbon candy number 5. Now we're going to start adding in some bells and whistles. And we're going to add a loop, top and bottom. So after the loop is added, we swing a little wider, but overall you've still got the same motions as all the other ribbon candies we've done. You're just adding a loop, top and bottom. And typically I do not have these touch each other, but that is something that you can definitely play with, like this. They're quite a bit wider because of the loop, so it's difficult to make them gracefully touch each other. But by all means, play around with that spacing to your heart's content. So that's adding a simple loop. Number 6 ribbon candy. This one's a little cutie. Like the one before, we're going to do a loop top and bottom, but we're going to keep the loop quite dainty in this one. And then we're going to start swinging the ribbon candy closed, and we're basically going to get a little heart effect. An upper heart, a lower heart, an upper heart, and a lower heart. And just that simple. You've got this sweet little heart-shaped border, and all it is ribbon candy with a tiny loop added in. The daintiness of the loop is what gives you that freedom to really shape the ribbon candy, to bounce it back against the previous one for the heart shape. So keep those little loops tiny in this variation. This time we're going back to the larger loop, but our addition this time is an extra stroke around the side, an extra S-curve around the side of the ribbon candy. So right here, instead of ribboning right around, we're going to put in one S-curve first and then ribbon. And I find it helpful if I don't take it all the way to the bottom or top. So right here, not all the way to the top, I get a more graceful look. And then a nice wide ribbon candy with the loop, not quite to the bottom, S-curve into the next ribbon candy. I went all the way on that one. This will become as personal as your handwriting, so feel free to do whatever way makes it comfortable for you. But this extra little S-curve just adds one more level of detail. Ribbon candy number 8. Make sure that you're really comfortable with the motion of ribbon candy before you embark on this one, because we're going to quilt it in 2 stages. So a lower loop that extends about 3/4 of the way down your border or sashing spacing, and then full and wide at the top. Smaller loop, lower down, full and wide at the top. We're just going to repeat that across our whole sashing, and then we'll do stage 2, and that's when the magic happens. So it's exactly the same motion as ribbon candy. You've just changed, again, the proportions a little bit and which portions of it you're quilting. About here. So now we're going to do the mirror image, top to bottom. So we're filling in the whole bottom edge, doing that smaller loop about 3/4 of the way up. Now we've got a double ribbon. Okay, ribbon candy number 9. We're going to get a double ribbon effect similar to what we got last time, but if you're having difficulty quilting that one out, maybe give this one a try. So in this case, I'm going to quilt my regular ribbon candy first off, pass number 1. I do not here want the really slim bowling pin type. I want a fairly rounded ribbon candy because I need room for pass number 2. So get some round ribbon candy going on all the way the length of your border or piece of sashing. And once that's all done, we're going to come back along it and fill in a smaller row. And this time, we're just crossing over our previous stitching and filling in basically 2/3 or 3/4 height, both top and bottom. So we're getting a similar ribbon effect to what we got last time. And it's up to you which one you use. They each have a lovely look, a little different from each other, but they both look like double ribbons. Okay, ribbon candy number 10. We're going to really dress this one up. So again, make sure you do generous proportions in your curves because we're going to do a second pass on this one as well. This works really nicely if you've got a slightly larger border. Again, my measurement is about 2 inches, but you could easily make this one 3 inches if you wanted to. That's some big ribbon candy. Some kid would have been happy to see that in their Christmas stocking, let me tell you. Okay, so you've got your chubby ribbon candy all in place. And now we're going to go through and actually add figure eights inside that ribbon candy. Keep it compact and short so that it nests inside. As best you can, make the arms of your figure eights or wishbones kind of match the angles of your ribbon candy, but also know it's not critical. No perfection needed here. This is hand quilting, or at least hand guided. And there we go. We're at the end of our sash. Ribbon candy number 10.